Addiction was a big one, and I thought that I could manage it. The levels of rock bottom just became deeper and deeper and deeper. I was literally dying. I'd moved myself out. I was living with my mum, lost my sight, my brain was dying. I was down to like 60 something kilos, fading away, dying. But it wasn't until my rock bottom that I really sought help. Growing up in Western Sydney, it was tough. That suburb's really well known for every bad behaviour and criminal behaviour you could think of. I know our street was definitely one of the streets best known for it. As a single parent family, we lived in a lot of housing commission, and I think that's why we sort of moved around a fair bit. Growing up, my mother, me as the oldest son, and my two younger siblings, two younger brothers, which are a couple of years younger, and then a 5-year gap. When I was around 5 or 6 years old, my mother split with my stepfather, and at the time I didn't even know it was my stepfather. And I remember the conversation really well, her telling me that I had a different father, that we were going to move away, and I was going to become the man of the home. I guess for someone that age, like the concept for me was really foreign, because I'd grown up with a guy that I actually really respected and liked. I didn't see the reasoning or why this was all happening. But for me to fill those shoes, I felt a real heavy burden, yeah. We'd always get broken into, it didn't matter where we were. We were an extremely vulnerable family. My mum tried, like she really tried. You know, we'd get joint Christmas presents, or because that's all she could afford. But you know, we really appreciated everything we got. But the worst thing would be a couple of months later, we'd lose it and start again. And so putting all of that into perspective and feeling that I had that responsibility too, to keep that stuff safe at a young age, was hard and difficult. I enjoyed school. I mean, I was a good kid. I really, good grades, good sports. And I thought I was going places, you know. I really had dreams and hopes that I thought were definitely, you know, I was capable of achieving. Once again, I guess the bullying is always around. You know, kids get bullied. And I was definitely an easy target. It's one thing to feel like you're responsible and you're the man of the home, but it's another thing to live that out and act it out. I was a realistic kid. I didn't want that. I don't want to be picked on. I just wanted to live and have a great life and do everything a kid should be doing. I guess the overbearing responsibility to try and protect us. I remember our house being invaded on by school, like, you know, neighbouring kids and that, and having to stick up for my family in that. When bullying came along, it was specifically targeted at myself and my pride and everything that I guess I didn't want to be, but I thought I had to become. I would run, I would hide. I would literally truant school, wag school, and hide in the top of a church. I would hide in the library. And I think that's where I actually decided to learn self-defense, because I literally came across the self-defense section and started reading every book, started to self-teach myself. You know, I asked my mum for a boxing bag out the back, and I would train every day until my hands bled. Starting to achieve some things too that I didn't think I was capable of in that too, and then coming across people that were willing to teach me. When I was about midway through school, there was an older student, and he terrorised me. He was probably one of the biggest reasons as to why I would hide. Until one day he cornered me. It wasn't even about self-defense. I mean, I guess it was about self-defense, but I wasn't even going to give him the chance to hurt me. I wasn't even about that. I just snapped. I literally snapped. And it was all over so quick. And I remember my mum was literally at the front of the school waiting to pick me up. And I got into the car, and she just asked me if I was all right. And I told her what happened. And she wanted to march me into the principal's office. And I was like, no, I'm all good. I think I'm all good. I'm all good. And then the next day, life changed. Life changed so much that the kids that never ever wanted to speak to me all of a sudden wanted to know me. It was empowering, and I guess I wanted it, and I didn't really see the consequences of that until later on. Drugs came along with that turning point moment. As a school kid, you know, the peer pressure of things comes up, but it was never a thing. The most respected guys in the school wanted to be my friend the next day and invited me to his home. I think it was acceptance, I don't know, into something that was safe. From that moment on, never was afraid to go to school, to walk anywhere in my town, like walk anywhere. And that confidence it's scary confidence. The years that followed, we stopped getting broken into. The relationship I had with my my brothers it was one of those relationships where it was like, do as I say, not as I do, because that was the father figure in me, that it was like, I'll sacrifice myself if it means you just do you and don't worry about everything else. You just want what's best for your family, you know. He so wanted to be part of my life that I'd push him away. Like I said, I didn't want him part of that. But there was a time in my life when I was about 16. Grew up in a sense of that I understood that I really didn't want what I had to. Like, I really wanted to escape and do my own thing again. Like, I just didn't want the responsibility. I moved out, I threw on a backpack and decided to travel. As a kid, backpacking and having the freedom to do what I wanted and not feel the pressure of a lot of the other stuff was really good. Yeah, ultimately it was one of the best 12 months of my life. But coming home, no one had filled my shoes. You know, my brother had stuff stolen off him, and I put myself through hell to get us to here, and I thought that we'd be okay. But in that moment, I also had to escape town and moved out to a work colleague's house. About a week later, I received a phone call, and it was from a neighbour. When you hear it, you don't want to believe it, you don't believe it. He rang and he said, "Dave, your brother's passed away." In that moment, I mean, it's shock. It's pure shock. I mean, I don't think I even responded. I remember getting out of the car, Mum coming over to me, and she was bawling, and I just grabbed her and hugged her, and it wasn't it. The only emotion I had in that moment was hate and anger, in all honesty, because I looked around the streets and I saw all the faces that we struggled with for years, you know, and here I am becoming one of the statistics of our town, our street. I didn't cry. I bottled so much up. With the fact that I thought that I needed to be strong. I mean, and I believed it. And it wasn't even a consideration. For me, it was about strength and resilience. It was about showing everyone else that you're not going to get me. So you'd overdosed. And I think that for me was also hard to understand, because that was a behaviour I really didn't see in him either. Like, I didn't know, because I thought that I should have known. I really should have picked up on it. Yeah, like I say, I remember being at his funeral and still not a tear, not a tear, and I don't know why. So it wasn't until much later of doing recovery that I was actually able to acknowledge it, because you think men are gonna be strong, like they're the backbone. I remember consoling male friends like that were happy to cry on my shoulder while I sat there thinking that I still had to be strong. Yeah, as life goes on, I mean, you know, as best as you can, you move on. You set that sort of stuff aside for a moment. So we all sort of moved away from that area. And the nightclubber scene was around. I was 19, you know, let's face it. And it was one of those love at first sight moments on the dance floor. It wasn't even drunk. Well, I wasn't drunk, she wasn't drunk. We were both designated drivers. But meeting her was great. It was not only good because I thought, you know, and I realised that I'd found the one. And she was moving up here, up to Harvey Bay, with her mother. And I thought, you know, there was a part of me that I thought, she'll come back. She'll come back like I did, she'll come back. But after a couple of years, she hadn't, and it got to the point where I was like, all right, you win, I'll move to Harvey Bay. I'll pull the trigger. Coming to Harvey Bay, it was actually a really easy transition, but it wasn't long before the fear and anxiety of still needing to protect what I've established set in. I'd really developed Jekyll and Hyde, like real behaviour of two personalities. To everyone out there, you know, I had it together and everything was fine. But there was also that other side, what I used to do when I was younger. And it wasn't long before drugs and addiction took back over. When you're trying to lead a double life, it becomes extremely toxic in the home. As kids were coming along, working hard, providing, but then once again, like working extra long shifts, working away, working to do whatever I could to support them and give them everything I never had. I'll work my backside off if it means that my kids live comfortably and get everything that I believe they need. It wasn't until later on when you realise your kids are older and you don't even know them. But addiction was a big one. It was trying to keep that away from them as well and making sure that they were never around that or saw it. There were moments when I saw that, I was becoming a monster. I didn't want that. I never wanted my kids to ever be around that. And so I moved myself out a couple of times, you know, and I come back, you know, relapse. And I thought that I could manage it. You know, I really did. You know, there were times when I thought that I could just bounce back. and we talk about rock bottom, and the levels of rock bottom just became deeper and deeper and deeper. But it wasn't until my rock bottom that I really sought help. I was literally dying. I'd moved myself out. I was living with my mum, lost my sight, my brain was dying. I was down to like 60 something kilos, fading away, dying. When my kids are guiding me to the shop so I can get them an ice cream because I can't see, you know, that's awakening. And it's all due to my behavior. You know, it's my burden. It's what I was doing to myself. You know, I think Kylie had also, she'd had enough, and I got it. You know, all I wanted was my family back, and I wanted to wipe it all away or disappear, you know, for it all to disappear, all the feelings, everything. But I couldn't. Addiction's such a harsh thing to endure. Bayside Transformations came in, and multiple times in the past, I'd literally made fake phone calls to rehabs, you know, to appease the family. I'd be literally on the phone speaking to nobody, and they believe I was on. Oh no, there's no beds. Oh, okay, you know, I'll call you back in a week. That was me, and I was doing that all the time, because I thought, like, once again that I had it under wraps. I remember the phone call. I remember the person. I remember it. It was taking that leap of faith, taking the steps to trust the process and really want help. It was the first time I think I wanted help. You know, it wasn't about someone else influencing it, telling me that I needed it. It was about me acknowledging the fact that I needed help, and I wanted help. Kylie was no longer contacting me. I had interaction with the kids, but Kylie, no. The day after I made that phone call to Transformations, my eye ailments, my vision, like, had literally come good. That real drive to want to fix myself somehow triggered something. I was on fire for I wanted recovery. So the first weeks when I stepped into there, part of the program is no outside contact. For anyone that walks in there, that's probably one of the hardest periods, because, you know, people rely on family support so much. You need to focus on yourself. And for me, I think I needed that too. You know, I definitely needed to think, you know, it was me time, I guess. You know, it wasn't about the burden of feeling a bit of failure or feeling like I needed to have it all together for everyone else. It was about me working on myself. I remember sitting in a group, and I don't even know how one of the residents knew, but one of the residents, you know, Dave, I think your family's here. Like, I went to the door, and I remember the feeling so much, like the kids rushing up to me and me walking towards Kylie, and she wrapped her arms around me. And it was at that moment that I knew I was actually doing right. You know, I was in the right place. I mean, I stepped in there with the concept of, you know, I'll have this done in 3 months. I'm good, like, I'll be good. You know, I'll kill this. 3 months came along, and everything's working out so well. You know, my family's back. I'm learning stuff about me that I never really wanted to acknowledge. 6 months comes in, and I'm like, no, I'm doing this. You know, I'm doing 12 months. I wanted it so much, you know. I was willing to push into anything I had to make sure that, yeah, it happened. My family became Transformations family, if that makes sense, because a lot of guys there don't have family. And so for them to see the interaction I had with my family, to become a part of my family's life, not only empowered me, but empowered them. And I loved, I mean, we appreciated that. The kids enjoyed it. And it was good for them too, to be a part of that. I think for them, as younger kids, they potentially didn't really know. I think, you know, they wouldn't have known back then what was really going on, but at least they were part of the journey. We bring it up, it comes up, but I mean, they're still young. There are so many things about my mum that I didn't really realise until I was an adult. And I think, like I say, for kids, it's hard, because I don't want to put them under the pressure, once again, of growing up too quick. I want them to be kids. 8 years of recovery, but I feel empowered by what I've achieved through and throughout. For Father's Day in Transformations, my kids got me a little whiteboard, one of the $2 things that you get at school, you know, to write on it. And I mean, I was like, what can I write on this thing? But it's something I put above my bed. I was like, be who you were, be who you are, and be who you want to be. And I sat that over my bed and I looked at it daily. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for where we've been, who we are, and who we want to be. We're born to fail, you know. And it should never define us. I work now at the Neighbourhood Centre, working in mental wellness for the Community Access Program. One of the most fulfilling roles I've ever had.
David wears his heart on his sleeve. He really gets out there and is with clients through the hard times and the ups and downs and sees them through until he can see, you know, the light where he's come from as well, and gets them into that better place where they can start making better decisions for themselves and their families, and then seeing them come to that point where they can then participate in community.
I mean, I love it there. I've got such great support, have so many programs in one building, but it's the clientele. I get to work with people that I get them. You know, I can bridge that gap. I know when I was amongst it, you know, it's hard sometimes to walk into the clinical side, but to have someone that's gone through it or gone through something similar, or can acknowledge a feeling and emotion, have empathy and some understanding is what I see my clients. I see it in their faces and the acknowledgement they give me. You know, they appreciate that. And I appreciate that because I get to work on myself daily, because everything they bring to the table I get to work with, and I get to work on myself at the same time. I had to write a letter to myself because that's what broke me in transformations. I let 35 years worth of angst out in that one moment, with a letter to myself. It was literally about forgiveness and acknowledging the fact that I was a kid. I didn't need to wear the burden. I just needed to have been me and been happy with that. If there's any message I could relay to any kid, is be good with yourself. Like, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. I see so, and the people I work with, I see the people on the streets. I know they weren't born that way, but I know for myself, and I know for a lot of people I meet, that deep down, there's a real person, a good person in there.